So we have been discussing video games that have all had a dark outlook on them, and have basically said each time how it's impossible to survive. I mean, that's the title of each video, right? That's the name of the series. But what if we stopped looking at bleak outlooks on hopeless universes and actually shifted our attention to a franchise that was made to be family friendly and focused on a younger demographic? One of the most successful video game franchises, and well, anime, trading card game, and even the creator of the ever-growing Yellow Rat Shock Trooper army, kids and nowadays adults alike have been enjoying catching, befriending, battling, and what most call enslaving creatures of varying sizes and human-like forms. Avoid Googling half of them because of certain interests. Roll 34. But anyways, these monsters have a rainbow of different abilities, ranging from lizards being able to breathe volcano-like fire, goldfish freezing stuff in a cascade from a distance, monkeys smashing through solid pewter and even steel with pure power, crocodiles causing quakes that shake the earth, ferrets summoning thunder, it's actually lightning, anteaters destroying the mind and soul of other intelligent creatures, plants rising from the marsh and cutting down people with sharpened leaves, and the literal god of creation who has the ability to bend reality as we know it at will. Now we are taking a break from the blood-soaked carnage of adult-oriented games and taking a look at what Game Freaks dub a kid's game and giving it the bitter reality treatment. This week we take a look at the rock, paper, scissors style combat running out of ideas. Gen 1 was the only good gen. They're focusing too much on the first generation and nostalgia, making friends with an animal that you will force to fight. Michael Vick approved. Monsters are stored in the balls. The mascot should have been voiced by Danny DeVito.
Whoa, whoops, oh! I dropped my monster condom that I use for my Magnum Dong.
One of my favorite game series, and everyone knows the theme song itself. This week, we are telling you why you wouldn't survive a Pokemon war.
I want to live and survive the worst scenarios of games. To not become a monster's bratwurst, but we'll all turn out the same. We would all die no matter what we did, no matter the franchise. But there's a game that's made for kids. It's Pocket Monsters with Brutes Alive. Pokemon, kill us all. It's you and me, exploding your destiny. Oh, that's fucking Satan in a world of living weapons. Pokemon, kill us all. Fire-breathing Jedi powers too. Bugs that will chop us into stew. You teach me and I'll teach you. Pokemon. Gotta kill us all. They gotta kill us all. God.
Most of us have played through Pokemon starting from humble beginnings on Red and Blue, or maybe starting midway on Ruby and Sapphire, or being fashionably late with Sun and Moon. Regardless, a majority of us enjoy catching our favorite Pokemon out of the over 800 currently available. In the game series, Pokemon work in tandem with trainers to not only battle and rise to the top, but also help in creating a functioning society. Muscular Pokemon like Machoke and Girder helping with heavy-duty work like construction, Lapras for commercial and domestic seafaring, Miltank for milking and I guess making steaks. Not safe for work, Meowth, oh god. Voltorb and Togedemaru for generating power. Chansey and Audino to work in the medical industry. Pidgeot and Togekiss for transportation by air. Jigglypuff for the sleep deprived. Apom for high fives. Ambipom for high tens. Grass types to cultivate farmland. And even Meowth, Lillipup, Furret, and Mightyena to have as household pets for mental health or even human protection. They work in harmony with humans in most parts to make the world a better and more friendlier place. Pokemon trainers, which apparently is a profitable job by defeating anyone in battle, and a mandatory compensation would be mandatory, can set out on a journey to catch, train, and battle with Pokemon at the very young age of 10. Yep, that's right, at 10 years old you can leave the house, live on your own, capture beasts, and fight adults with them. Yet sometimes you'll fight kindergartners who are the age of 5 who have their own Pokemon and fight with them. But that logic is tossed aside and never explained. People, as a majority in this universe, try to coexist with Pokemon for the greater good. However, there tend to be evil organizations that crop up exclusively within each region that look to use Pokemon to further their own goals, much like different factions within our own world with different countries who do the same. Team Rocket looks to smuggle, steal, and sell Pokemon on the black market for profit, not a far stretch from what goes on in the real world. Team Magma and Team Aqua, who look to expand the massive land and sea respectively, which both don't make much sense in either regard. If we lose a lot of the ocean, a lot of our life dies. If we lose a lot of the land, we ourselves, how can we exist underwater? Team Galactic, wishing to erase the world due to the emotion of its residents and start completely over, that's just extremely bleak. Team Plasma, who wish to release all Pokemon from their human masters, basically a Pokepeta, but with a corrupt leader who generically wants to rule the world. And there's also Team Flare, who, although they look like they would be the most cartoony out of all the organizations, are pretty Thanos-y, wanting to activate an ancient weapon in order to kill all sentient life, excluding themselves, in order to avoid overpopulation and exhausting the world's resources. And of course, Team Skull, who are just typical gangs who contract for the worst villains of all, Science. The Aether Foundation, who eventually ditched their efforts of preserving Pokemon and became corrupt, wanting to harness the power of the Ultra Beast. So ranging from cartoonish villainy for money and power in Team Rocket to basically wiping out all life, the goals of the universe's factions can be a bit extreme at times, but that isn't without saying that our world doesn't have its fair share of groups like that, who lack the resources to even try starting their objective. There have also been theories as to a great war that happened within the Kanto region, the country that Red, Blue, and Yellow were set in, and probably other regions too. If you haven't already seen a 30-minute analysis on YouTube theorizing the Pokemon War hypothesis, well, there are a few quick clues that point towards a previous war within the Pokemon universe. First of which being the Electric Gym leader Lieutenant Surge telling the player, "You wouldn't live long in combat. Electric Pokemon saved me during the war." We proceed to see a land populated mostly by women, children, and elderly men, with the exception of occasional fishermen, electricians, or just weird teenage cosplayers. Most adult men in the country are associated with criminal organizations, gyms that promote strength, or nomadic hikers without a home, possibly veterans of the war. You never hear of a father for your own character except in Ruby and Sapphire, who is also a gym leader. It's also reasonable as to why mothers would let their children journey on their own so young and become the breadwinners of their household. Mom, stop spending my money! It would also explain why so many Pokemon centers exist without much room for entertainment outside the Unova region, who has tons of room for leisure, which, is based on the United States. But this is all a theory. A gay theory. Of course, in the reality we live in, things would be quite different than the hunky-dory friendship is all the world needs world of Pokemon. If Pokemon were to truly exist, there would be hellish ramifications in our modern society. On a small scale, within smaller and more isolated but numerous instances, Pokemon fighting would become more than a friendly sparring match and would eventually devolve into a possible fight-to-the-death cage match with gambling involved. Crime rates would soar with some criminals using super strong or fire-breathing Pokemon to break into high security areas or just do simple mugging. Can you imagine someone throwing out a Steelix and demanding your money? Children would not be allowed to be the master of the pocket monsters, as would a lot of people. Children would end up sending out a Pokemon to attack other kids who pissed them off. Imagine seeing a 10-year-old calling out his Bisharp to cut you in half because you called him a doo-doo head. Children and most adults should not have that capability at their disposal, since when a Pokemon is captured, they will most likely do your bidding. You would pretty much need a license or certification to even carry Pokemon, with higher clearance awarding use of certain Pokemon, like a driver's license where the basic identification lets you use Pokemon who are incapable of deadly force or accidental damage to property, and then further certifications to allow you to use Pokemon like Charmander in a probably master class who are the only ones allowed to carry giant or dangerous Pokemon like Onix or Scyther. And of course, there would be different types of Pokemon carrying licenses for different working classes like in construction or the military. Electric types like Magnemite would fry electronics by being in their mere presence. Poison types like Weezing just being called out would cause the nearby area to be uninhabitable. Sending out a Magcargo would literally nuke an environment with a body heat reaching 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 10,000 degrees Celsius for you non-Americans. A vast majority of even common Pokemon would be a threat, considering rats can even be able to learn how to create high voltage electrical strikes, since most normal types have the capability to learn a variety of fire, electric, psychic, and other elemental moves, and pigeons can even muster up winds gusty enough to blow down houses. Police forces, fire departments, and other government-associated programs would take to using Pokemon for various purposes, but the primary concern of this video is how, if used improperly, would lead to us not surviving a world occupied by these vast amount of creatures. Now let's go ahead and take a little inspiration from the Fallout universe. Don't don't worry, I'm not going to turn this into Pokemon 76, just borrow the lore from the Fallout universe, and honestly an eventuality of our world, and say that the countries of the world are fighting over resources. But this time, instead of sending out nukes, they're just waging war with Pokemon. And yes, this idea was explored in Pokemon X and Y when there was a great war that was waged that forced a character to kill off a majority of people and Pokemon with a giant weapon. Now, planes and tanks alike would be dropping and shooting out Voltorb and Electrodes to self-destruct near enemies and blow them to pieces, as well as a litany of other explosive Pokemon like Drifblim and Skuntank. Now, Scyther and Bisharp would be sent to cut through infantry, with Bisharp taking enemy gunfire easily since he is a steel type. You've got frickin' dragons like flying over the sky, raining fire over squads of people like Salamence and Dragonite, and even modern human weaponry would be made to counteract multiple different types of Pokemon. Standard issue military weaponry like the M16A4 or M4A1 would be ineffective against creatures like Steelix, who have a composition almost as hard as diamond. You may say, well, why not melt that bitch down with a flamethrower or napalm? Well, it's true Pokemon do have their weaknesses, but these can be counteracted by a teamwork dynamic in tandem with other species of Pokemon. If a Chandelure were to run interference, its natural ability of Flash Fire would absorb the flames and actually enhance its own flame-producing power. Now you're saying common sense to put out that fire with water, bringing in natural forest fire tactics and dousing the fire Pokemon, right? Well, water would be countered by a pesky Vaporeon with its ability to absorb water attacks and even heal itself, while an aerial backup would be blown away by any flying type Pokemon. For every check and balance to a Pokemon you may see on the battlefield, armies would find tactics to go back and forth and fight, well, fire with fire, that would magnify the capabilities of each side as they try to take advantage of each individual Pokemon's weaknesses. Pokemon are also known to only reside in certain parts of the world, much like the video game series, where certain generations can only be found in the respective continent until an invasive species is introduced, as we see in Generation 2 where Pokemon are cropping up in Kanto in Gold and Silver like Houndour and Murkrow. Would it be reasonable to assume Pokemon like Doduo and Kangaskhan, the ostrich and kangaroo inspired Pokemon, to originate and mostly live in Australia? Or the intimidating but loving Beware inspired by the red panda found in China? Would these countries restrict certain Pokemon from crossing borders in order to keep an advantage over others? There may be a worldwide trade economy established to distribute these countries' exclusive Pokemon. Get it? Trading in Pokemon and version exclusives. I cracked myself up with the analogies. But I've been discussing regularly existing Pokemon in nature and wild encounters. But there's something I'm sure you're waiting for me to discuss that would absolutely demolish humanity. That's right, the solitary, one-of-a-kind legendaries. An equivalent of a global nuclear arms race would be held, but instead of creating nuclear warheads to flaunt power, countries would all be clamoring to catch the mythical Pokemon that the natural world would be hiding and protecting. With legendary Pokemon that are literally one of a kind, that have the abilities to control the ocean, create massive droughts, rupture space and time, drain the life force of all living creatures within a given continent, reincarnate living beings, transporting between universes, the power to shift entire continents by just a rope, and literally God himself, who can, at any time, recreate anything that otherwise has been destroyed, erase something from existence, and to even perform chaos control. While elusive, even if one of these powerful creatures, excluding one of the trios, were to be captured and mastered, it would tip the power scales in the world and cause global disarray depending on which one was acquired. When it comes down to you as a person and a war between countries, or even just a basic street brawl ensuing, you and your Pokemon, if you have any at all, or if you're just that pathetic sap with 6 Magikarps, you'll have to come to the realization that if someone throws out a Pokemon, they may or may not be in for just a fun sparring match. If facing a Pokemon alone, you could be utterly killed or at least impaired in hundreds of different ways. And I'm going to do just that by going into this next video, and I'm going to talk about how each of the over 800 Pokemon one by one could kill you in about 10 words or less, give or take. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video now. Now, did I cover anything about a Pokemon universe that would utterly screw us? Let me know in the comments if I missed anything. If you feel like Pokemon was just not a good enough video game series for me to cover, let me know in the comments as well. I will be doing a little game that has to involve the spinning Speaking of gears in a warlike setting next time around, I can't remember the name of the game though for the life of me, but let me know in the comments what you want to see next. And until next time, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell, and donate to my Patreon if you want a shout out. By the way, shout out to my Patreon and YouTube Super Chat donators: Lovable Tester, Mario, NATO 6141, Ricardoy Ascension, Song of the Void, Irene, Twilight Duck, Castleliv, Exploding Burritos Experience, Shillarby Turtlelord, DJ Cheatham, Kimberly, TKX Shield, Super Amazing Hot Dog Batman, Taylor 07, Light Thunder 777, The Burbiest Burb, Ninja Kirby 935, The Lonely Envy 14, Jimmy Fitzpatrick, Twisted Trickster, Prince Sheep 1738, Revolver Boy, Chris the Guy, Bryce the Overlord 454SS, Insane Infirmate, Mama Fish, and Slothic Goth. Thank you for your generous donations to Wild Such Gaming. And until next time, I'm Zack. Stay well. I'll see you in that full 823 Pokemon list.